I'd like to call to order. I'd like to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, will you take roll call, please?
Liz Smith,
Present.
Andrea Voorhees,
Present.
Mike Powell,
Here.
Scott Ruggles,
Here.
Mr. Roman,
Here.
Mr. Lilliser, Mr. Supervisor,
Here.
all members present.
Looking for approval of the agenda or changes. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make the following recommendations to the board, that we add a budget amendment to the consent agenda. Also, we need to put into the record the treasurer's report, and also the new list of bills dated 1/17/17. And also, Supervisor has requested that we remove item 9D from the agenda.
Looking for
Make a motion to amend the agenda as stated.
support.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public comment, item number 5. If anyone would like to make a comment, please identify yourself, and we'll go from there. Yes, sir.
My name is William Phelps. I'm here along with...
Address for the record, sir.
We live at 1156 Castlewood on Sunken Lake.
Okay?
I'm here on behalf of my sister Kathleen Phelps, who is building a house at 1150 Castlewood, also on Sunken Lake. I'm here also with Mr. John Strang, our builder. My sister was informed early this month that she would be unable to participate in the special assessment for connection of the sewage system that's going through our neighborhood right now. So she's been been planning the building of a house since September, and in October, went to the water department, paid her deposit, $650 for the permit for connection, and she was just informed recently that there's a difference between the special assessment district, the special assessment financing, and the permit to put in the sewer. Now, she and Mr. Strang were operating under the impression that having paid that $650 in September and having committed to connecting with the sewer, that she'd be able to proceed, and has done so. Now, the house isn't up yet because the zoning board or the zoning commission had to approve setbacks, so it delayed things by about a month. Mr. Strang here is in the process of building, unable to break ground now until the weather changes. So we understand there was a misunderstanding, that there is a difference between the two activities, but being unable to participate in this special assessment renders building this house that she's been planning since September extremely difficult. Now, and she's asking that the board reconsider the decision. If an appeal is necessary, perhaps an opportunity to appeal the decision. Now, I have copies of her letter here and copies of the receipt for the emergency connection that I can leave with you to look at your convenience. So I'd appreciate if you consider it.
Very good. If you'd like to leave us copies, we can get a hold of you in the future.
I'll take care of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else like to address the public? Okay, moving on. Moving on to the consent agenda. Mr. Clerk?
As stated before, added the new list of bills, the additional budget amendment that we discussed both at the budget meeting and I believe in December, that there needed to be some corrections in the job description that has been completed, and the addition of the treasurer's report.
I'd also like to make a note that the attorney's fees that are due this month are just under review for payment from the supervisor's office. I'd like to have those approved. Okay. Any other questions from the board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is passed. I'd like to go to presentation.
Supervisor.
Yes. I beg your pardon.
We'll say that Terry made the motion.
I beg your pardon.
And I'll do support.
And then-
Terry made the motion and Mike
Before we move
support.
on.
I beg your pardon.
No problem.
Okay. I'm just excited to get Dan sworn in. Okay. So I would like to go on to the presentation. At this time, I would like to ask Chief Keller to come forward to the podium, and our clerk would like to administer the oath.
And we're going to do yours first.
Yes.
Okay, if you please raise your right hand and say after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform
and I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office of
the duties of the office of
Chief of Police
Chief of Police
for the Township of White Lake,
for the Township of White Lake,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
State of Michigan,
State of Michigan,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're going to hog the shot.
And that's okay.
Not around. Awesome. Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you.
Funny story, this is the only police officer that ever beat me up.
That's
It's
right,
true.
I forgot about that.
And now I promote him to chief. Wrong with that picture. Congratulations. And at this time.
Can I just say a few words? Is that
Yes,
okay?
certainly, absolutely.
If my wife could stand back up. Tomorrow is her 36th birthday. You're still in your 30s. It's okay to do that kind of stuff. Now we know.
We've got it written down now, though.
Yeah. I want to thank each and every member of the board, especially you, Mr. Colwell, for this opportunity. I feel humbled and blessed and honored to be in this position. And I will give you my all until the day I retire, and probably then some. It's not just about me. It's really about the men and women in the back, the officers, the dispatchers, the sergeants, the lieutenants, and the records clerks, and even Jason Hudson. Without these guys, these men and women, this department is not successful. Their hard work, their determination, their excellence makes this place better, makes the quality of life of the citizens of White Lake high. So I appreciate everything you do. I appreciate your dedication. I want to give you a round of applause. Real quick, I want to thank my family. You already know my 36-year-old wife. That's my son Brody, and that is my daughter Reagan. You know, I couldn't do this job without them, without their strength and their fortitude. I can be a pain in the ass sometimes, and I appreciate it. I want to thank General Kahabi and his wife for showing up. Adam, former chief of the police, who's now the chief of police of Lansing Township. Chief Klein for showing up. Gene, where are you? Gene, right? Where's Gary? All right. These guys help out White Lake more than anybody knows. They're the driving force behind a lot of the good things that we do in the township. So I want to thank you guys for that. That's it. We can. So what's most important?
Christopher, if you'd like to go to the podium, please.
I'd like to say a few words first. You know, it's not easy to become a police officer. You got to go through the academy, you got to get into education, and you have to pass a written test that takes a couple hours to complete. And you have to go through an overboard where there's a general, a former chief, and a former police officer that are grilling you for a good hour, half an hour, to make sure that you're viable for this place. Because this is the most important part of the job is the background, is getting that person, the right people in the spots to make this place successful. And then Sergeant Hill is the one that did Chris' background. It's a 40-hour process. It's not something short. It's like, oh, this guy looks good. You know, you're going to their family, their friends, their neighbors, their places of business, and you're doing all of that stuff, and it takes a lot of time. And it's very important because I just don't let anybody do the background investigation, because that's how important it is. Because Chris is going to be here for 20 plus odd years, and it's important that we get the right people in the right spots. With Chris, his mother is here. Where's Mom? Kimberly Haplin, that's her mom. His girlfriend is here as well, Shayla, and her beautiful daughter, Reagan. It's a great name, by the way. Great name. I want to tell you something about Chris. Chris is 26 years old, and he's from Roseville, Michigan. He joined the Army when he was 17. He served 6 years in MP. He did a tour, one tour over in Afghanistan as well. I want to thank you for your service. Unfortunately, he attended Ferris State University. I'm a Laker, so I'm trying through sworn enemies. And he graduated from the police academy there, and he did this in 3 years. I did it in 5. So it's hard to do it in 4, let alone 3. So I'm very proud to introduce, hopefully, someone who's going to be here for 20, 25 years, Chris Maceras. Thank you, sir.
Chris, if you please raise your right hand. State after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will faithfully perform
and that I will faithfully perform
the duties of the office of
the duties of the office of
police officer
police officer
for the Township of White Lake,
for the Township of White Lake,
County of Oakland,
County of Oakland,
State of Michigan,
State of Michigan,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations, thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I'd have that.
Thank you.
He had the best on some legs.
I won't get charged with assault.
Just check.
Very good. Thank you.
Chris, Miss Anderson, please.
Excuse me.
Okay.
As always, I'd like to thank the police officers of this community for their duty and their dedication. Without them, we would not be the community that we are. Okay. I'll wait for a moment here for the clerk.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I had 10 or 12 people ask me when I walked in. Everybody wants to know the date and location of the promotion party. You kind of that.
Haven't quite got there yet, but I'll make sure people know. Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, moving on. Item number 8, the minutes from December 20th, 2016.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from December 20th, 2016.
I have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Roman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 9, new business. This will be resolution number 17-001, the resolution and agreement between the White Lake Township and Chief Daniel Keller. Comment, question from the board?
Make a motion, Mr. Supervisor, to approve the resolution 17001, with the agreement between White Lake Township and Chief Dan Keller.
I have a motion, looking for support.
Support that.
Support from Andrea. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. 9B, our SAW grant engineering proposal from Johnson and Anderson. I'm going to let Mr. Biederman give us a real brief analysis. Bramer, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. Yeah, and just kind of give us a brief summary of this.
Yeah, as you'll recall, I think that most of you were here, but 3 years ago, the township applied for a SAW grant through the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. And it was an absolute lottery system. And I think they funded $97 million each year. So this program that we hope you're going to undertake, that you're approved for now, in the third cycle of funding, this program is very well needed. It's very well put together. It's also 90 cents on a dollar funded by MDEQ. So actually, this is the same document that was approved as part of the grant application. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of you might have. One other thing that I think the board should do tonight, Mr. Baroni is listed as the contact person and has signed all the documents so far. I think that Mr. Colwell should then be appointed as the official signatory and contact person with MDEQ.
Is that an action that could take you through your office, or do we have to do that directly through our
I
grant?
think your board should
Okay.
appoint you as the person, and then
I just didn't know if it was a formality.
We'll get that through to MDEQ so
Okay.
they know that.
That's where I was going.
Right.
You'll get it through DEQ, okay.
So I'll be happy to answer any questions. I know it's a fairly detailed scope of services, but like I said, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I just will have a brief comment to the board. Many of the items that are on this are items that are going to be required by the DEQ for our water quality and a variety of other studies and things that are coming through.
If I may, this is a funded mandate.
Correct.
This is something you have to do anyhow.
Right.
They're providing funding for you. The water asset management plan, which is due at the end of this year, does not
Correct.
have any state funding. The nice part of this is you're using a lot of the same software and hardware to be able to do the water asset management plan in a very expedient manner. So,
I saw a hand in the audience.
What is a SAW grant? Can you explain what this is?
this is a program developed by the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality to force municipalities to catalog and assess their assets. So what are these sanitary assets? They're everything related to sanitary sewer collection and then transmission to somewhere for treatment. So it's all the manholes, the pump stations, and things like that. Okay?
Any questions from the board? Mr. Powell?
I had a couple. First of all, this is going to be extremely beneficial to the township from here on out. And I was curious whether or not Terry knows, is this software very user-friendly, or do you have to be an engineer? Or?
No, if I may, so you folks are in the third cycle. So we have a community on the west side of the state, Eggleston Township, very rural. Makes you guys look like a metropolis, right? And they have really embraced this. They bought into everything, and with only basic computer knowledge, they're starting to now get into writing work orders and so forth. So I would say yes, it's going to be very user-friendly.
The base maps that this whole system's going to be placed on, what is going to be the base map system that this
If I
will
may,
be placed
the
on?
base map system will be Oakland County government areas. So and this will be a geodatabase, GIS based. So it's going to be, when you get done with this, it'll be state of the art with anybody in the county.
So you'll actually able to give Oakland County Planning maybe some GIS data to have property lines and streets and houses put in the right place instead of on their base maps.
Well, maybe you can do that.
Yeah, okay. The next question I had was, in your proposal here, you talk about pump stations. Are we also talking about the individual grinder pumps at each individual home? Is that going to be located
Yes.
on this as well?
Yes.
What about the shut-off valves at the streets?
I'm not sure the level that we'll take this down to, but I think working with township staff and Mr. Potter will determine that. I know he has a lot of experience coming from Waterford, so that's all been done in Waterford before, so we'll follow that fairly well, I would think.
Really, the last item I had that I needed some input on was, you get into the fog study and
Right.
the reports.
If I may.
Yes, go ahead.
That's the toughest one to implement with local units of government, because you can come off, if you don't handle it right, you've got to do a lot of public information. What Mr. Paul is referring to is fog as fats, oils, and grease. And fats, oils, and grease are some of the worst stuff you can have in your sanitary sewer system, but it's also all the places where you go to eat, right, are generating these things. So you have to be very careful how you implement a fog ordinance, if you will.
And that's kind of where I was going. Are you going to be actually going and documenting which of our food establishments have grease traps and which don't?
If I may,
Certainly.
yes, we have done that. So you guys are, like I said, in the third cycle. We had one saw grant in the first cycle, 2 in the second, and you guys are in the third cycle. So we've developed quite a lot of experience in doing these, and the grease traps will be identified, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, Mr. Lilly?
I'd just like to make a motion to approve the G&A project number 17419, and also authorize the supervisor to sign the SAW grant proposal.
I'll support that.
We have motion and support. Yes.
I just had one other question for Mr. Bramer. On the manhole inspection, Terry, gravity manholes, do you know roughly how many gravity manholes we have?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
I don't know if it's in here or not.
No, it is not.
Okay.
Terry, just in layman terms, what do you do when you inspect a gravity manhole?
Oh, it's, we have a set of criteria that we've developed that fits with MDEQ requirements for this program. So you're going to, Mr. Paul, I'm sure is very familiar with this. You'll pop the cover, you'll inspect the upper part of the manhole, the chimney, if you will, to make sure that everything is intact on adjustment rings, because that's a possible source of inflow and infiltration. Then and actually what we've been doing lately, I don't know if your community will be big enough, but we've rented a camera. So you pop the cover, you set it up over, the camera goes down, back up, photographs everything, and you take off in a very short time. So then, excuse me, you go back and look at the video later, and then you do the manhole rating. It's called MAPC rating system. It's you know the
Acronym? I do not.
I'm trying to think of the organization that developed it. But anyhow, all our inspectors are trained and certified for inspecting and rating manholes, and you check the flow channel, you check, make sure all the joints are sound, things like that.
Thank you, sir.
Any further questions? Mr. Paul?
Terry, what do you think the timing might be from beginning to end on this?
Well, you have 3 years to complete this program. So we've had some preliminary discussions with the supervisor and Mr. Potter, and there are certain aspects, especially of the hardware and software implementation, that they would like to get going right away. So that's what we're going to concentrate on.
Okay,
Okay?
okay. Thank you.
We have motion, we have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you very much. We have 9C, amendments to the zoning ordinance number 58. Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, sir. From time to time, we send through the process housekeeping items, as we call them, to the zoning ordinance. And over the last several months, we have been compiling a list of various ordinances, various sections of the ordinance that need to be kind of cleaned up and clarified. And that is before you tonight for consideration. The Planning Commission had a public hearing on January 5th and recommended approval unanimously to the Township Board for adoption of the ordinance amendments in front of you. You received a set of clean copy amendments and then the redlined amendments, which are much easier to track the changes. So, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Any of the board members have a question? Mr. Powell.
I know that's a surprise to you, but yes, thank you, I do. The first thing just for your office, and I discussed it with Attorney Halami a little bit, and it doesn't have to do with tonight's meeting really, but on the January 5th meeting minutes from the Planning Commission on page 2, her name is spelt so poorly at the bottom, line 106 and 109, that it's not even recognizable as her. And so you might want to adjust that in your minutes.
Wow.
Her name, yeah.
Well, on Thursday, we will finalize these minutes, so we'll definitely make that change. Thank you.
Okay. The other question I had was, first of all, I wanted to thank your staff and the Planning Commission. This is very tedious and meticulous work, and I wanted to thank you for that. I wondered, you and I have discussed about a couple other things, but there was something that I wondered. The township offices are allowed in virtually all residential zoning districts, but for some reason you took them out of local business and NBD, which is, I forget what N stands for, business district. I apologize.
NMU, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, NMU, right. And I didn't understand, if you're allowing them in residential, why you would take them out of a business district.
It's under government, Sean.
Under government.
So you're talking township only.
LB, I think it was.
I don't believe that they ever existed. If you look at the use matrix, we separated out township uses from other generic residential uses. So you'll see that line on page 2 of the use matrix. Those are all districts that they have been added to. I don't believe they were taken out of a district.
You're correct. I apologize. They were not taken out, but they were not in those, and I didn't know if there was a reason why you would not want them in the business district when we do allow them even in residential districts.
That's a good question. We didn't get into that specific discussion on that. It's something that you can amend here if you'd like to see them in more districts. It's something that you have the right to.
No, I was just wondering about the thinking.
I think a lot of it was pre-existing, and so they just cleaned up.
change
And so
it.
it might have been
Cleaning.
like that before, and so he didn't change really that part of the.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, they went through and cleaning stuff up. I mean, for example, they separated bed and breakfast homes and bed and breakfast inns, something
Right.
so minor we don't see very much of it, but they didn't really drill down on this particular issue.
Okay.
So I would agree with
The one that you did drill down on was the removal of private parks, public parks, and community centers from a number of zoning categories. But then you left private swimming pools in. So when we get to the private parks, community center, public parks, I wanted to make sure that somewhere in the ordinance, future planning commissions don't say that mobile home parks or subdivisions or PDs or other community site plan issues would not be able to have those parks in them.
And Mike, if you look under outdoor recreation uses, they broke them out and further, in order to make this more user-friendly, they really moved to clarify it. So a lot of the outdoor recreation uses were just individually listed. So you'll see water parks and swimming facilities listed out in this matrix. I think it's probably the next, the page in front of the one that you're looking at. That's where that all ended up. So it was kind of a reshuffling of some of the parks and recreation type uses. It would be on the third page of the use matrix.
Yes, it is. You're
So that's
correct.
everything in blue there. That's all brand new. It's all specifically broken out to further clarify what types of uses are allowed where, instead of lumping them all into, it said private and public parks and similar outdoor recreation facilities. That's a lot of, that could mean anything. So we moved to kind of clarify that.
So they're still going to be allowed in those districts.
I think to address your concern, what the Planning Commission added at the public hearing was under, say for example, single-family district, attached single-family district,
Right.
where it had accessory on-site management office, they added community center to be clear that as an accessory use, a community center would be permitted.
I think that was in mobile home park.
Well, it was
An RM1 and
it added
RM2
it
as
in
well.
a lot of the districts to kind of combat your concern about planned district developments. At least that was the discussion at the Planning
It was
Commission.
looked at as just an amenity that we addressed as part of the site plan, as opposed to just a specific standalone use, is I think what they looked at it. So,
Okay.
for example, Worthington Crossing, a new apartment complex, say they come in and say, we didn't want a pool, but we want to put one in a common area. They'd be allowed to as a part of their PD process. And it would be kind of a common facility, sort of like, a clubhouse would be or a gathering space would be. It wouldn't stand alone. You couldn't just go in there and build some separate.
Okay. Hence, you
facility.
moved them from permitted principal uses to accessory uses along with the private pools then?
Right.
Okay.
Right, so it wouldn't
All right.
stand on its own, it would be an accessory to the primary principal permitted use.
All right, good, thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone? Okay. Looking for possibly a motion to move this along? Mr. Powell?
Mr. Supervisor, I move approval of I move approval of resolution, amendments to the zoning ordinance number 58 as presented.
9C on our agenda.
See.
Looking for support?
Support that.
Support. We have motion, we have support. Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Moving to item 9E, 2255 Porter.
I think we're on D, right?
He's been removed.
Summarize.
Or did we move D? Oh, I put E.
Wasn't it David?
So what?
D was removed.
Yeah.
It was removed.
Name was removed, yes.
So, back in April, came to the board, a complaint regarding use and occupancy of the residential property located at 2255 Porter Road. The complaints revolved around the commercial landscaping operation conducted on the property. Commercial landscaping operation is not a permitted land use or a permitted or special land use in the suburban farm zoning district. And despite attempts by the township to seek voluntary compliance with the ordinance, the owner had failed to cooperate. This was brought to the board's attention in April, but the matter was tabled in order to review. After numerous discussions with internally, I'd actually like to make a motion to refer this matter to the Planning Commission for review and analysis of the home occupation provisions of the zoning ordinance in the north end of the township.
Making it as a motion.
That's a motion.
For discussion, I'll support that.
Support. Any other questions? Mr. Ruggles?
I think it's a wise choice.
Okay. All right. With that being said, we have motion and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. Now this takes us to Mike's favorite part of the meeting. However, I have a brief statement that I'm going to make.
Yes, go.
Upon appointment of trustees to various township boards, it has come to my attention that we have an asset to the board in regards to our library. Liz Smith has served on the library board for some time in the past, has offered to act as a quasi-liaison to the township board. Although this position is unofficial, due to the library board's autonomy and the legalities that go with it, it is my belief that a conduit between the township board and library board is a very important factor at this crossroad due to the future plans of the library within our community. Therefore, I would like to appoint Liz Smith as our temporary, unofficial library liaison to the board and look forward to her communications to the board under trustee comments. And with that, I will start with you on trustee comments.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Well, I accept that appointment. I would like to start out trustee comments with some unfortunate news about the library. We did have a library trustee pass on New Year's Day, Pam Collins. So I just want to extend my condolences to her family and all who knew her and loved her. She will be missed at the library. And then I also just want to mention that today there was a community focus group, and I know a few of you joined me this afternoon there, and it is again now going on at the library, so perhaps you might be able to catch the tail end of it if you're interested. And I just want to invite all residents to contact the library board or myself if you have any suggestions, a wish list, something that you're hoping to be included in the new library. We would love to hear from you. And I'm happy to keep you abreast, and I'm looking forward to this new role to support the library in communication with the township as they move forward in building. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Andrea.
As the liaison to Parks and Rec, we have changed our date. We always could use an audience. We generally have no audience, but we love to have an audience. So if anyone is available starting January 1st, we now meet on the second Wednesday of every month at 7 o'clock, White Lake Standard Time. So if anyone has something to do on a Wednesday night, come join us and see what a bunch of volunteers that all represent White Lake do to help support the parks.
Very good. Mr. Ruggles.
So I had my first planning commission meeting. It was went well. We discussed the ordinance changes there. It's kind of odd seeing Sean sit up here. I prefer him down there. So yeah, it went well. Looking forward to our meeting on the 19th.
Very good. Very good. Mr. Powell. 2 minutes or less.
2 minutes or less. I think it'll be fairly quick. I noticed in your summary, Sean, that we received the state approval of the commercial rehabilitation district.
We did.
Is that the last governmental approval we need to continue with that project?
I believe it is.
Yeah, and I noticed that we had 2 buildings down. That whole area has needed improvement for almost decades. And so, do you have any idea what the timing is?
There are actually 3 buildings down now.
Actually, there are 3 down.
Yeah, the final building, I don't know what the time frame exactly is on the demolition of the last building, but then the cleanup of the soils that they have ahead of them will begin in earnest. I have been told that later this month they plan to come in with a conceptual drawing or plan for us to possibly bring here for some real initial feedback, bring to the Planning Commission for some initial feedback. But again, what was discussed here previously is really what they're still after. Multiple family on 3 stories in the back and 3 different pads for buildings, standalone buildings out in front. So that plan hasn't changed real substantively. I know that they're working with the Road Commission now on getting their curb cuts nailed down and approved. There's a full-blown traffic study that'll be very necessary given some of the traffic concerns at that intersection that we've all been aware of for 60 years. They're still progressing, I guess, to answer your question. And we met with them a couple of weeks ago. The supervisor arranged for a bucket truck to take one of the owners up and probably 2 stories high on a very breezy and cold day, higher than I would have gone off the ground that day. And he took some pictures just to kind of get a perspective from that kind of perch or angle. So they're very excited. They're moving ahead, but they're just trying to move carefully so they're not going 1 step forward, 2 steps back. So.
Okay, thank you. And you did mention the traffic study. That was going to be my next point. Obviously, that intersection is a terrible intersection.
It is.
And especially heading south on Union Lake Road there. Nobody knows which lane to get into and when to go and when not to go, and backed up traffic. So
Yes.
Who's the traffic study going to be done by?
I don't know for certain. I
Okay.
think Fleiss and Vanderbrink may have done the initial, and I believe that they will. They're obviously qualified to do.
Michael Labadie, probably.
I believe Mike was involved. So I believe they did the rezoning traffic study, but the full
Okay.
traffic study will be necessary at the time they submit their site plan.
Okay.
And they're
good.
working with the road commission on a regular basis at this point to make sure they nail down everything that they're going to want to see in that study.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Just a point, I received a certificate from the Treasury Department from the state of Michigan that indeed that has been recognized.
Good.
So I actually have an actual printed out certificate of a sort.
Awesome.
That came in. So,
Good.
okay. Mr. Lilly.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd have the opportunity in the last couple of weeks to work with our new water official. I'll tell you, Aaron is a tremendous asset to this township, and looking forward to his abilities to not only operate water and sewer more efficiently than what it has been, but also going to be a big help in the document management system that he's knowledge and working with Waterford Township and whatever is going to be a tremendous asset to us. So
He seems pretty bright.
just want to mention that. So.
Can't talk him up too much here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roman?
No comments today, sir.
Very good. My only comment here is that I'm glad that we were able to appoint a new chief. It'll be the continued stability of our police department, and that all the departments here continue to work in the manner of the best interest of the community. And I thank everyone for coming this evening, and we will now be heading into executive sessions. So, Mr. Roman?
Make a motion to recess into executive session to discuss privileged communication in accordance with MCL 15-268H.
Make a motion. Any support?
Support.
Do we need a roll call vote for this?
Yes.
Yep. Liz?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly votes yes. Mr. Supervisor?
Yes. Well, all the votes yes. We will go into executive session. We'll take a 10-minute